A strange, wounded character that lives in some forgotten urban space lures you in with his haunting tales and melodies. This time out, Neon Brown from Velvet Negroni. Velvet Negroni has toured with Tame Impala and Bon Iver. He's collaborated with many big-name R&B and hip-hop artists, including Kid Cudi. Eventually, he signed to 4AD and put out his first release, Neon Brown. Beggars Banquet began as a series of record stores in England, eventually starting up their own label. They thought of a sort of farm system by having 4AD as a way to try out artists and then move them over to Beggars Banquet if they were successful. The only group they ever did this with was Bauhaus, which was a post-punk proto-goth band. And then they also signed The Birthday Party, which became Nick Cave's first sort of legendary band. Eventually, they developed their own look and style, which was a very ethereal sound with bands like Cocteau Twins and Dead Can Dance. They also had their own look, their own brand of graphic art, and developed a reputation as a kind of high art label. As the 80s moved on, they had strange things such as Dead Can Dance, which fused Gregorian chant, Middle Eastern music, dance, and electro. They had things like Pixies and Throwing Muses by the end of the 80s, going back sort of to their post-punk roots, raw sounds of those two Boston bands. And then by the 90s, they were starting to get back to the ethereal sound that they were famous for with shoegaze bands like Lush. Somewhere in between, you have groups like St. Vincent TV and On the Radio and Blonde Redhead, continuing that legacy of that label. 4AD has always been rather eclectic with bands like Wolfgang Press, which started off as a kind of post-punk, weird, goth experimental band and then eventually morphed into a kind of Manchester dance band. But Velvet Negroni is pretty unique for the label. Of the 120 artists that they've had over the years, they've had Americana, folk, different types of big atmospheric groups, even one dance hit, Pump Up the Volume. But of the 31 active artists, Velvet Negroni is the only artist that could be considered alt-rap or alt-hip-hop. Velvet Negroni actually stems from an even rarer family tree, and that is alt-rap, artsy rap. Rap and hip-hop had really expanded sonically and topically with socially and politically minded rap like Public Enemy, but also there was this other side of the genre that artists like LL Cool J, who were more interested in sort of shallow style and image than substance, less social commentary, if any social commentary at all. So this sort of tug of war began. Rap continued to explore new territory as a genre, and all these artists were sort of pushing what was going on with the genre into new directions. Somewhere in between there was a group of artists known as the Native Tongues Collective, including De La Soul, Queen Latifah, and A Tribe Called Quest, most notably. Often with sly, subtle commentary, a bit of humor. They threw in concepts and stories along with their songs, again pushing the genre into a new direction, eventually using more and more jazz samples and even employing Ron Carter to perform on their tracks, drawing this link to this continuum of African-American music, but also to the rich legacy of jazz. In the 90s, hip-hop, rap, and R&B seemed to be wide open. Anything could happen. You could have weird things like Arrested Development and PM Dawn, which were consciously Afrocentric, pushing against negative stereotypes, urban stereotypes, cliches of rap that had already developed. Things like Black Sheep, Tribe Called Quest, and Basshead. Rap influence, rap sounding at times, or actual rap, but putting in comedy, putting in concepts onto each album, exposing the potential of the medium and pushing things into a new direction that would allow for projects like the Gorillaz later on and Han, for example. Even though it seemed like the potential was there, limitless possibilities for genre, everything kind kind of ran its course. The experiment went back underground, and all things Dr. Dre ruled the radio waves and took over the genre. Tupac and Snoop and all these folks, Dr. Dre himself, dominated what became 90s LA hip-hop. And we went from We've Got to Fight the Power and Burn Hollywood Burn to We've Got to Smoke the Chronic and Cruise the Avenue. And this sort of shallow, not politically or socially conscious rap took over. It's not to say that all rap and hip-hop disappeared. Another genre that developed at the same time was trip-hop. Groups like Thievery Corporation, Massive Attack, later the Gorillaz, would take the influence of rap, take the sounds of it, and instead of pretending to be criminals, would use it to make high art in times like Portishead, for example. Velvet Negroni is the current pseudonym for Jeremy Nutzman. He's adopted numerous names over the years to fit whatever he's working on at the time. Currently, he's a bit more introspective, quiet, almost seems to just be whispering when he delivers his lyrics at times. He grew up in the Minneapolis-St. Paul region, out in suburbs. He was adopted by a white Christian fundamentalist family. His missionary mother actually pushed him to be a figure skater, which he competed in, and then also a concert pianist. Not satisfied musically, he would sneak out of his bedroom window and play in various bands. While visiting Austin, at one point in a hipster bar there, he developed the name Velvet Negroni. Seemed to fit where he was going musically. Neon Brown is a kind of musical journey. You find yourself in an industrial wasteland. Metal doors or walls are used as drums and rise into a decadent cathedral. You sit in a vast space, odd sounds echo through and around. A spell is cast and a strange character begins to whisper lyrics to you. Melodies come and go along with genres, but they haunt you somehow. Encouraged by your interest, the character shows you other sides of his personality, but soon darkens. Perhaps because you never left that industrial wasteland. Nothing is resolved. Your time has passed. You must return to the outside world and leave the stories and noises behind. But you feel you might one day return to visit this strange character again. Or maybe not. We were fortunate enough to get a really beautiful orange limited edition, numbered edition print of Neon Brown. Really holds up quite well on the vinyl. There's so many layers of strange sounds that sort of echo through the whole thing that you really can hear it much better than when you're streaming it or something like this. You can hear these layers with more definition. Beautiful edition. The artwork, very plain Jane, very simple, kind of a Matisse little line drawing of sorts, a monster eating his own hand. Looks to be handwritten, scrawled through, graphics on it. Elegant, but if you compare it to a typical 4AD release, especially of, like, say, the Pixies or Throwing Muses or something. This is a TV on the Radio one from 4AD originally, and it's just elaborate and had its own sort of graphic style, its own kind of art direction, which became sort of typical of 4AD. So I suspect that 4AD had little or nothing to do with this, because it just doesn't have any of the sort of staple art direction of them. Wonderful first effort from Velvet Negroni. hope he continues to stay original and collaborate with lots of artists. And we definitely look forward to whatever he's going to do next. Thanks for hanging out.